What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, guys? It's your boy, Mr. Boring Money, back at you with the Boring Money Show. And today I want to talk about something very, very exciting that I had an opportunity to talk with a colleague about earlier this week. And that is ultimately how I've been able to use cash flow from the blockchain to grow and expand my real estate portfolio. Now, what I want to do is clearly communicate that this is not financial advice by any means whatsoever. All I'm doing is sharing what's worked for me, some of the investment principles that I've learned over the years, and this is for pure entertainment purposes. If you're seeking financial advice, or if you have issues with your own portfolio, seek a financial advisor, somebody who's licensed and who's qualified to be able to meet you at your unique needs. This is just for educational purposes and entertainment purposes only. It's been so exciting. Not a lot of people know about this, and it's kind of surprising. So ultimately, the game of real estate is you're taking capital and using it to acquire hard assets that will produce cash flow, that will appreciate over value, essentially protecting your capital and acting as a hedge against inflation while producing income semi-passively. And I say semi-passively because the only true way you're going to have passive income in real estate is to actually have somebody operating the properties and doing all those things on your behalf, where you're just a investor providing capital, and that's it. So you'll need an operator, somebody who's actually going to do that for you. So for me, real estate is semi-passive because we do all that in-house. Now, the cool thing about real estate is there's so many different ways to fund a deal, and there's so many different ways to extract value from your property. All right, you have tax deductions, you have depreciations you can leverage, you can have appreciation of the asset going up in value over time, you have equity being built up into the property over time. You also have the ability to produce cash flow with short-term rentals or long-term rentals. And there's so many different ways to also add value to a property, upgrading it, renovating it, all these different things you can do to really maximize the return that you're producing on your capital. Now, for me, I was looking into real estate early on, like a few years ago. And the issue that I ran into is the fact that I was in the growth phase of my businesses where I needed to stay as liquid as possible. And with real estate, you're locking up your capital in the property. It's not very easy to take capital out of a property without selling it. You can take on more leverage in the form of a HELOC, home equity line of credit, or HELOAN, home equity loan, but it's difficult to take money out of a property. The only true way you can recoup your principal that you used to invest and acquire the property is via the rents and the cash flow that you're accumulating over time. And that could take years before you recoup that principal that you put into that property. So for me, it just was not very liquid. I needed to find a way to produce cash flow with my excess cash while remaining as liquid as possible. And real estate just wasn't it. So I actually discovered the blockchain through my search of trying to solve that problem. I was trying to solve the problem of getting the money that I made to work for me, but not locking it up. I still needed it to be accessible just in case something came up in the business. I needed to make a hire. I needed to invest in acquiring different types of things for the business. I needed to stay as liquid as possible. And that's where the blockchain really changed the game for me, because I learned through a ton of trial and error, I learned how to deploy capital on the blockchain while keeping it as stable, right? While keeping it cash, and produce cash flow with that initial principal, right? So my goal was to stay like as liquid as possible. Mainly when I'm thinking about the capital that I need for the business, I want to say at least 50% liquid. So that means if I needed to access 50% of the cash that was on the blockchain, I can do it with a snap of a finger. And so I started focusing on building my business treasury to the point where it's producing enough cash flow to, in some of the businesses, where it was covering the cost of operations. That's when I got the idea. I was like, okay, now it's producing enough cash flow to cover my operating costs, but the business itself is covering its own operating costs. So I was like, what can I do with this cash flow? And so I started exploring if I can build up enough my cash position to the point where I can take that cash and use it to fund a real estate deal that produces cash flow. Now I have my cash producing cash that is acquiring real estate. So I'm staying 100% liquid that entire time because my initial principle is producing income that I can access immediately. And then now that income that's being produced by the principal is being saved up and used to acquire hard assets. All right, if you can wrap your mind around that, it just completely blew me away that this was even possible. And what was even crazier is the fact that I've been able to build a network of private lenders that only require me to put down anywhere from 10 to 20% on a property to acquire it. So now, let's say I have a digital real estate on the blockchain producing $5,000 a month. What's going on? I wanted to take this time to quickly interrupt this video or this podcast. If you found this helpful and you're interested in getting started investing on the blockchain, we have an incredible program called the Boring Money System inside of our Wealth Sanctum. What we do is we'll guarantee you'll produce cash flow within the first 30 days of setting up your first digital cash flowing real estate on the blockchain, or you don't pay. So if you're interested in that, there'll be a link somewhere in the show notes for you to be able to apply and schedule a free strategy session where we can look at your portfolio, look at your financials, and figure out what would be the best and most efficient way to deploy capital on the blockchain to guarantee cash flow. Hope to see you on the inside. Back to the show. So I build up to a point where I have $10,000. That's like 2 months worth of cash flow just set aside. Now I have $10,000. I can use that $10,000 to acquire real estate, a hard asset that's worth $100,000. And let's say the monthly mortgage on that property is like $1,000 a month, whatever it is. But now the cash flow that I'm producing on the blockchain actually covers the mortgage, right? It covers the mortgage. And so when I rent it out, I am 100% cash flow positive month one of rent. Month one of rent. Why is that? Because I never actually had to use my hard-earned money. I acquired the real estate with income that I was producing passively on the blockchain. So now I'm in a situation where I get to stay 100% liquid. Let me say that again, 100% liquid. Core principle that I'm making for my businesses goes into the blockchain as cash while I'm able to produce income with that. All right. If I needed to access that cash, I can have it back in my bank account that same week. You can't do that with real estate. If you were in a pinch and you need to get the money out, like you can't do that in a week. Just closing on a HELOC alone took like 3 weeks. So you can be up shit's creek without a paddle if you don't have a proper plan. So now I have my principal working for me. Money that I'm producing in businesses goes to the blockchain as cash where I can produce cash flow with it. And then the cash flow that principal is producing gets built up to the point where I can use it as a deposit to acquire a real estate property that I can rent out and produce cash flow. Now, I'm not using my own money to acquire and grow my portfolio. I'm using the money that my money was producing. There's 2 degrees of separation there, right? First, the money that I make goes towards producing more money. And then the money that I make that is being produced then goes towards acquiring real estate. So I get to grow my portfolio and be aggressive in growing my portfolio because I focus on being liquid first, deploying my capital on the blockchain, and building up a digital real estate portfolio that produces cash flow. Then I can then use that cash flow to start acquiring real estate and funding some of these deals. And it's been completely life-changing. I've been able to build my portfolio faster than I ever would have been able to if I had gone into real estate investing right away, right? So now I get to focus on only purchasing based on the amount of cash flow that my digital portfolio is producing. And so now as I start to see cash flow from the real estate properties, that cash flow that's being produced with the rental properties can then be used to acquire more rentals, right? To the point where I don't even need to depend on the cash flow that my digital real estate portfolio is producing. And now the real estate portfolio is able to self-finance its own expansion. All right, so that's the kind of stuff that I think about when I was sitting down and analyzing whether or not I was in a position where it made sense for me even to start really getting into real estate. It took me longer than I wanted to, but because I was willing to be patient, because I knew once the cash flow from the blockchain was going to reach a critical mass to where I can more aggressively start to accumulate real estate, I would be further ahead. I would make more progress year 3, year 4, year 5 than I would have if I just started day one. All right, and the result of that is being able to aggressively expand to the point where within a span of a year and a half, we have over 7 figures of real estate, and now we can start to continue to expand that, which is pretty cool. So I wanted to share a little bit about that because that was an interesting conversation that I had with a buddy of mine, and he was just kind of like blown away at the fact that you have those options, right? Even if I have money that I want to put into a property, I can deploy that on the blockchain, get that producing cash flow from me, and then take leverage immediately against that principal that I deploy on the blockchain, and then use that as a down payment for a rental property. So it's pretty cool. There's all the different ways you can go about doing it. If you found this helpful and you want to learn more about how I go about doing some of these things, go ahead, join our Facebook group and get access to our free course. There's a lot of great information there that you can start using just to understand how powerful the blockchain is and the incredible opportunities that it presents. Do not give in to the fear that the media and the mass market and the mainstream media wants you to give into. Don't give into that fear, right? Be willing to explore opportunities yourself. Be willing to do your own research and understand some of these opportunities and experiment with them so that you can have your own experience and develop your opinion based on your own experience. Right now, crypto's taking a nosedive and is crashing pretty hard, but our portfolio on the blockchain is still producing cash flow, and that has not been affected because we learned how to deploy capital on the blockchain in a way where we're not focused on buying low and selling high. We're focused on producing cash first, focus on producing cash flow first, and then taking that cash flow and using it to acquire hard assets. And it's been incredible. So if you want to learn how to do that, you should definitely join one of our groups. In fact, you know what we'll do? I have a training that I put together on how we're going about doing this. If you want to get access to that training, there'll be a link to register for the workshop where you can see it. So if you want to register for the workshop, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to have the team put together. If you go to www.mrboringmoney.com/workshop, that will take you to a link where you can register for that training. And I hope to see you there. Till next time. If you found this video helpful, chances are you're going to find a ton of value in our Boring Money community, where I'm in there live, actively sharing articles, market updates, and just educating you on what's going on in the market real time. So if you don't want to wait for another one of these episodes or another video training to come out, and you want to have live updates on what's happening in the market, go ahead and join the Boring Money community, where you can have access to us and be able to ask any questions that you want, and potentially even get featured in an episode. Till next time, hope to see you on the inside.